Hi, my name is Alison Slavin. My pronouns are she, her, and you are here for the public-facing roles panel from everyone here at Bungie right now. Just a reminder, we are not here to talk about the games that Bungie is working on. We're going to be talking about what it's like to be a public figure in the world of gaming, especially as a female. And how we stay calm, the awesome work that we do to represent in our industry, especially in the wild nature of gaming, and how we can help each other and hold each other up, and how we keep ourselves safe being these public roles. I am currently a production lead at Destiny, or on Destiny 2, and I'm like looking at the notes, I'm sorry. And when it comes to being public facing for me personally, and this is something I'm going to ask everyone here, I generally am not on Twitter. I don't do a lot of public facing social media things, but I do represent Bungie. I've done recruitment videos, I've done viadocs, and I've done a lot of panels. And so that's the way that I personally am public facing in video games. So I'm going to go ahead and start at the most public facing person on this panel right now. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Leah Ruppert. I am, I go by she, they pronouns. Always forget to say that. I'm a community manager and co-lead of accessibility at Bungie. And I have made the unfortunate decision to be public facing for like 20 years of my career in games. Don't know why, but it's fun. It's fun when you're public facing because you get to just hang out with cool people and get to make all your mistakes publicly. And that's just a fun time.
Hi.
Take it away.
I'm Wendy Wade. My pronouns are she, her. I am a principal producer at Bungie working on Marathon. I am similar to Alison. I mostly do things like viaducts, come to shows. I also like to talk to students, so I'll go to classrooms and answer questions for students about working in the games industry. I was on Twitter. I left when it X'd.
Don't you mean X?
I left X.
It's X.
So I'm on Blue Sky now. I'm technically public, but I don't really post a whole lot. So
smart.
But I love meeting folks in public, like face to face. It's fantastic. Like, people are amazing. They've got great stories to tell, and so that part of it I really, really enjoy. I don't read the comments on the viadocs. I just don't.
When your community manager tells you don't read the comments, don't read the freaking comments.
We have professionals.
We're trying to protect you.
Yeah,
Just never read the comments.
Never read the comments.
It's a bad idea.
That's our job, man.
Hi, my name's Leah, Arakaki. I use she, her pronouns. I am an analyst on the Destiny player support team, and I'm mostly public facing through Twitter /X. And then like a few con appearances throughout the year. So like, this is my second time speaking at GeekGirlCon, which is super cool.
Hi, I'm Laura Warner, she, her pronouns. I am the social lead on the upcoming marathon game, and I am mostly public facing through cons, and then also I do a lot of talking at high schools and universities. So a lot of my focus is really on talking to folks who are excited to get into the industry.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I'm so lucky to be up here with some amazing women. So how did you how did you become more public facing, and was it really like an intentional decision? I mean, obviously it was a very intentional decision with you, right?
I kind of fell into it face first. I became public facing. I've been a journalist before I went dev side. I've been working in games media for over 21 years now. And it wasn't until I started working at CBS that I became, because I didn't have Twitter, I didn't have any of that. I was smart. And CBS said, you have 2 weeks to get on Twitter or you're fired. So I had to get on and get active, and everybody saw that I had literally no idea what I was doing, but it was okay. I can shitpost with the best of them. And that's kind of 90% of the job, just shitposting. But I have a really abnormally large sense of justice, and if you know anything about the games industry, there's a lot of justice to be had. So it kind of fell face first into it, but once I realized that, I actually do have a platform that I can help with, it was a pretty easy decision. On the dev side, being a CM is really cool, because not only do I get to engage with the community that literally means more to me than anything, I get to also support the devs that make games that mean so much to us, and a lot of us met our best friends through, and the people that we just really love, and being able to support them is just, it's beautiful.
Awesome. I know for me, I've been in games now 20 years. I worked at a lot of places like Lucas and Ubisoft and Activision. And I remember starting out, and I was really lucky. I had all these women who were my mentors who were around me. And I remember, because again, this was like 20 years ago, and they had some really bad experiences being public facing in their roles. They got a lot of negative impact from that. And before I was anyone in games that anyone cared to listen to or talk to, I had seen this, and so I was very hesitant. Like, it was a very intentional decision for me. And like when I remember when I first signed up for one of my first like Bungie Viadocs or showcases, I like literally like did the thing where you clear your stuff off of Google and you clean everything up and you lock down all your social media so
Don't tell them our secrets.
But like, I did all this stuff because I wanted to keep myself safe and my family safe, and I most especially after that stuff went out, did not read the comments.
Yes.
But what about the rest of you? Intentional?
Yeah, for me, so I'm not going to tell you how long ago, but 1,000,000 years ago, I went to grad school for video games because I'm a big nerd. And I remember going through the program and being like, are there women in this industry? Because they had a lot of guest speakers come through, but I think in 2 years, there maybe was one woman who came through the program where we were seeing, men come through on a regular basis to come talk to us and talk about like what they did for a living. And I remember I was getting close to graduating and being like, are there women out there? Like, what does this look like? Is it just going to be me by myself? So when I did get into the industry and finally started to have opportunities to speak, it was really important to me for any other women who are interested in getting into the industry to just be out there so they can be like, well, she's a dork, but she's there and doing it. Yeah, so for me, it was really important just to have some representation out there so that for the young girls who are interested in getting into this industry, they know there's a path forward there at least.
Yeah, I was more like Liana. I fell into it kind of unintentionally, because what had happened was I had interviewed for and then gotten my offer from Bungie while I was still in college. So it was like senior year, second semester. There was like a month left to graduation, and I'd gotten this job offer, and I like told my close friends and family and stuff, but like hadn't shared it super widely on the internet yet. And so I was like, oh, like this is super cool. Like I want to celebrate. I made a Destiny 2 like grad cap with like Sagira's shell and like Eyes Up graduate on it. And I'm like, and my friends were like, this is super sick. You should post this online. And I'm like, okay. And I did it. And then the Bungie Twitter account retweeted it, and like my notifications blew up. And then like a week later, I was like, by the way, today was my birthday at Bungie, surprise! And so, from there, it's just been taken off, essentially, which has been both intentional, but like also unintentional, the way that it happened.
For me, so I started actually on tabletop games at Wizards of the Coast. And back in the day, we would go to shows to teach people how to play games. And I was good at that. So I went to a lot of shows and taught a lot of people how to play card games. And I loved it. It was great. And to Laura's point, like making sure that people could see, yes, there are women that work in this industry. Yes, this is something you can do as a woman.
We are the women's.
We are the women's. Became very important to me because I realized being visible mattered, and having an opportunity for people to come up and ask questions and talk to you and how did you get into the industry was a lot of fun and very important to me. So it's something I've wanted to do since then, also a long, long time ago.
I love that you all are bringing that up. Like, there are a lot of cons to being a public-facing woman in video games because, we have a lot of male players, especially for Bungie-related games, and it can be a little bit dangerous, but it is so rewarding to be representing women and to be able to go out. I've gone to college or to high schools as well to represent, so that it's like, hey, girls, you can do this too. Like, there are women here, and we want to see more women here. So please join us. It is one of the biggest pros to being public-facing. Are there any others? I mean, that's my favorite. Are there any other pros to being public-facing?
Oh, hell yeah. The swag is awesome. One of the coolest things is about the Destiny community in particular is we just have like one of the most creative communities out there. And it's just really cool to see all of the stuff that they create. And sometimes you get really lucky and they'll like share like cookies or something that we made with you, and I have no sense of risk. And I'm like, give me whatever food you made. I don't care if it's poisoned or not. I bet it's tasty. And yeah,
You're giving everyone ideas right now.
right? Yeah,
Both good and bad.
my bad. Yeah, that and just this just a sense of community, like the gaming industry. I hope that one day we can get to a point where we can stop talking about we're here to represent, we're here to do this, because we're just existing. And just existing shouldn't be a political statement, and it shouldn't be a risk factor. And I'm kind of sick of it because we keep getting in this box where we have to talk from this place of being a victim. And we're not victims, we're strong as hell. And so being able to be in this community with so many amazing women, amazing non-binary folk, amazing trans women, amazing trans men, amazing cis men, like just amazing people of all walks and amazing perspectives. And I just learn so much every day. And being in, I don't think I would be able to have that much insight into other people if I wasn't in the role I'm in, because they know me and they also know I'm nosy as hell. So people have no problem coming up to me and just telling me their whole life story, and I appreciate that because that's a huge thing of trust. And then also just earlier, we were briefly talked about it, but when you are public facing, you are given a little bit of a platform, and being able to help, whether it's charities or just supporting the community or supporting each other or supporting yourself, because that's equally important. It's a very cool opportunity that I think there's not a single day that I don't feel grateful about that and consciously think about that gratefulness. And I hope 21 years strong, and I'm still not like dead to it, so I'm hoping I can keep that marathon going. Marathon.
Nice.
I got you.
Yeah, it's also a remarkably small, big community.
Yeah.
And like you run into the same people over and over again, and that's cool. The community that you talk about, right? Yeah. That's a lot of fun. That's another pro.
Yeah, you just reminded me another pros. It's fun. I'm sorry. I love talking, and it's, I mean, duh. But like, I mean, in high school, I was in theater and I was on the stage, and I just find it fun to be a part of these Viadocs and talk about the game and talk about the things that I'm passionate about. So yeah, it can just be fun. We get to work in an industry that's just fun and make fun stuff.
Really quick, does anybody in the audience not know what a Vidoc means?
Oh.
You said that like 10 times, and I don't even think about that. Vidoc is just video documentary. So when we talk about Vidocs, Bungie is really, we like our Vidocs. We make them for every showcase, and sometimes we just make them for the hell of it. I just want to clarify, because
Thank you.
we'll get lost in our acronyms and stuff like that. So just
We
wanna-
do love our acronyms.
We do. It's what we live for.
Are there any other pros we missed?
This one's really silly and dorky, but for me, it was one of the ways where I was able to reassure my parents that this was a real job. Like video games is a real job. So them getting to see me at some of these sort of events and stuff, and being like, oh, I'm flying here, or I'm doing this. That's when I think my parents were like, okay, that's a job you got there. Then okay, right. So I think it makes family members feel a little better about your
Not
career.
to brag, but we do pay our bills.
Yeah, like I literally told my parents, like, I'm speaking at a panel tomorrow, and they're like, oh, for your video game job? And I'm like, yes, for my video game job.
Do they say video game job?
No, I
'Cause
think
that would be
they're
hilarious.
They've gotten better about that, but like, you know, like I can see the cogs turning in their mind about it, so.
Love it.
So what does it feel like to you all to be in a more public-facing role? Like, I'll definitely say for me, and I'm sure you get it all the time, I'll have people come up to me and be like, hey, Alison, and I'm like, hey, you.
That's when you just break out the finger guns.
Yeah, it's all about the finger guns. But what does it feel like? I mean, I definitely feel a little bit of weight about, like, especially if I do have public places where I'm posting or anything, I do feel a little bit of weight about, like, what I can say. It's one of the reasons I don't do Twitter or even, like, TikTok or anything, because I don't monitor who I'm friends with on those. And therefore, I worry that anything I say and how it could be read, I get very paranoid.
Yeah.
But what about you all? How does it feel to be in a more public-facing?
Well, I think one of the biggest secrets of the industry is that 95% of game devs are huge introverts. So even those of us who do things like get on stage and do this sort of stuff, like I am such an introvert, and after this I'm going to need to go home and read a book for like 6 days straight. So a big part of it is there's a huge disconnect, right? Because we'll be on stage and we'll be all excited, and then folks will come up to talk with us. And I love when people want to come talk to us, but I think they're expecting us to always be like big personalities and really amazing, and I'm secretly like, this is so many words at once, and hi, and I'm really nervous to meet all of you, and I'm sorry, right? Like, it just is like, at my heart, I'm still an introvert, so it's definitely like this very interesting dichotomy between being public facing and a huge nerd on the inside.
I have an amazing coworker who likes to say, I'm not an extrovert, I just play one on TV.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Love that. I feel like I just have a lot of imposter syndrome. Like, on one hand, I'm like, like, yes, hi, like, I'm speaking on panel, like, I'm an industry professional, like, I've been here for 4 years, and on the other hand, I'm like, why would you ever trust me to, like, come and, like, look at me as a public figure, like, I don't know what I'm doing, like, but at the same time, yes, you do know what you're doing, but at the same time, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, so I feel like there's a lot of, like, that disconnect.
You know what? I think that's a good sign of who you are, though, because I feel like imposter syndrome always gets a bad rap, but I think it's a good sign. Like, I will never trust somebody that doesn't have imposter syndrome, because if you don't have imposter syndrome, you're probably cocky as hell. And in this role, you need to constantly grow and evolve with the community, and if you think you're above that, you're probably in the wrong role. So I think you're awesome, man. That is my TLDR.
You're killing it. You're killing it.
Awesome. I don't know. I still feel like I am getting in trouble anytime somebody says my name. I remember a couple years ago I was a temporary correspondent for BBC International News, and so for that week after, like, I got an abnormally large amount of people like being like, "Hey, I saw you," and every time my heart stopped because it's like, you know, when you get called when it's back in school, you got called in the principal's office, and it could be a good thing, but in your head, like, the entire world's ending, and like, oh my God, what's going on? Every time. So I'm pretty sure that anybody meets me, they're just insanely disappointed. Because, like what you said, is like they expect you to be like super outgoing, and I'm very introverted, not because of nerves per se, I just don't like putting on pants. But like I feel like when people do meet me, they're just like, wow, you're really boring.
I feel
I've
like
never
we
heard
need to
anyone say
clarify that when we say put on pants, it's COVID related. Like, we all talked about how we're wearing nothing but pajama bottoms all the time.
No, I just don't like pants.
Oh, okay.
I just don't like pants. No.
My bad. That's
There's
cool.
literally a sign in my house, if you come over, it says no pants. Wear sweatpants, that's fine, but like jeans, nah. You don't come over here and
No.
vibe in jeans.
No.
Absolutely not.
Pajamas.
But I do like it. It's a sense of community. I was one of many people in the start of COVID that got diagnosed with autism, and suddenly my entire world made sense. I was like, oh, right, okay, cool. And so like as I'm 36 years old, not to date myself, but like I have 33 years of deprogramming to do of like, oh, I do actually have a weird brain, and I need to learn how to readjust how I see things versus how the people around me see things. And so being able to go out to conventions and meet, especially in the recent year of being at Bungie, is meeting the community that has been a part of my gaming life for 30 years. I've been playing since the OG Marathon, Myth, all of it. And it makes me feel not so lost, because that deprogramming makes you doubt yourself, makes you doubt your perceptions, makes you doubt your place. And it doesn't matter who you are. And so like to be able to just set all that aside and be with a community that just accepts you because they love you as much as you love them, and it's just, that's like the best pro, that's the coolest thing, that's why I never want to leave. Like it's the community. I know I keep saying that, I don't just say that because I'm a community manager, okay? But like the community makes everything worth it. It's a sense of belonging, it's a sense of family, it's a sense of love, and the only thing I've been able to closely replicate that with was when I was in the military. When you're in the military, especially on deployment, it doesn't matter if you hate the person next to you, you would take a bullet for them. That's just how it was. You put the petty shit aside. Sorry if I'm cussing. Put the petty stuff aside, and that camaraderie is really hard to replicate, but I feel like there's a semblance of that in games that is very unique to our industry, and I think that's really special, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think one of the things there's a passion in making games and playing games, right? So regardless of where you are in the industry, whether you're making the games, supporting the games, a creator for the games, everybody loves games. Like it ties everything together, and it's great. That's why, yeah, I love the industry. I do not want to leave. It's got its problems, but that passion is amazing.
I mean, heck yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of the merch floor, right? The merch floor is just amazing because like there's so much stuff, like, and even just working in games, like you go and you talk to people, like the community and the people who play, you all immediately have something in common.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and it's this passion and it's this love and it's so much fun. So what has been your favorite situation that you've had being a more public figure?
So at PAX I host like a Breaking Into the Industry panel every year, and 3 years ago we had this really wonderful gal come through named Elsa who got up and asked a question, and we answered her and gave her some tips about how to break into the industry. And she actually followed up and followed our tips, and she now works on Marathon. She broke into the games industry, and she's incredible. Elsa, shout out to Elsa.
Follow those dreams.
And it was really cool to see like all my hopes and dreams of helping more women get into the industry like literally happen at the job I work at. So yeah, that's for me. Yeah.
I love talking to students, but I don't have a story like that. Now I feel like a failure. Thanks.
And that's where we circle back to imposter syndrome.
Yes. No, I really do love talking to students. It's so cool to open up people's eyes to the possibilities, how broad the industry is and how many things there are to do in the industry. Because like the first, you think about video games, it's like, I'm an engineer, I'm an artist, I'm a designer. It's like, those are all super important, but there's lots of other jobs that are equally important, like community managers, producers, data analysts. It's like, there's so many things you can do in this industry. And bringing that to students and giving them those different lines of thinking is a lot of fun. It's very cool.
Yeah, I went and talked at a high school once, and I'm a producer, and basically no one knows what we do.
We could not do anything without producers, by the way.
I like to quote Office Space and be like, I talk to the engineers so the customer doesn't have to, because that kind of sums it up. But it's a lot of organization and planning and talking to people. And I remember being at this high school, and there's all these girls, and they're like, oh, someone from video games, what do I care? And there were a few, video game, but mostly they're teenage girls. And so I remember doing this exercise with them where I was like, hey, so raise your hand if you already know what you're gonna do this weekend. Like, you already have all your plans in place. And all the girls, their arms shot up because they were like, oh, I totally know everything I'm gonna do this weekend. And I was like, okay, now raise your hand if you love talking to your friends and telling them about what your plans are. And then you're just like, and you just go around and you tell everyone everything and all the plans. And all of the girls' arms raised up, and I was like, you're producers! Because that's what we do. We make plans and we tell everyone about the plans. And seeing the smiles and the engagement that I didn't have 5 minutes before that exercise, and the interest in their eyes, like, oh, this is something I already do, this is something I could do at a company, and it's video games. That was super rewarding for me. It was really cool to have that experience.
Yeah. I think at the heart of my personality is I just like to help people. And I want people to feel comfortable and safe and have a good time. Life should be exuberant, it should be joyful, and if it's not, then something should change, because that's what the basis of life is. And there's two sides to that coin. On the dev side, where I'm at now, I get to, especially on those rough days, the game's down, or just rough news day in the industry in general, and that always impacts, like, the industry is very tight. So if one studio goes through something, we all go through something. We're all in it together. And my favorite thing on this side of things is when that happens, going to each team and just make them laugh. Like, my favorite quote is by Oscar Wilde, and it's like, make people laugh, lest they will kill you. And so when you can, with the community, if they're mad, I'll just be cracking jokes. Like, let's remind you that we're here for fun. Games are fun. And with the devs, remind them it's okay to take a break. You're not your job. Laugh, take a second, process how you're feeling, and let it go. And then on the media side of things, I really liked being a host. I did a lot of on-camera work, and I love doing that because I used to write own scripts. I used to work in an agency. We did E3, we did Xbox, we did all this stuff. And it was cool to be able to work with teams and them to be like, I've never worked with somebody that put so many jokes in their scripts. And it's like, yeah, but it works. And like, seeing people be able to enjoy it and just all collectively be together in that moment is dope as hell. And also just on the media side, I got to interview a lot of cool people. My favorite is probably, I got to 1 year interview Henry Cavill. I can't ever say his last name. I'm American. But he, like, everybody was so tight-lipped with him. Like, just, yes, sir, no, sir. And I was like, you play Alliance, don't you? You filthy animal. And just, like, making fun of him and just having a good time. And I think that's just, I don't know. It's just a job. Like, is it a cool job? Yeah, but it's just a job. And so if you're not enjoying it, what the heck are you doing? I said, heck, learning, growth. But yeah, I just like, for me personally, my mission and what I want to do in this role is just remind people it's okay to just vibe. Now, the world doesn't rest on your shoulders, and sometimes it feels like, especially when you're public facing, it can feel like that. There's many times where if our community's upset, you especially, Leah, because we work very closely together, has to like talk me down. It was like Friday, I was like crying in the studio. Like I feel like I let people down sometimes when there's obviously that's not the case. You know, the whole studio does not rest on your shoulders, but sometimes it can feel that way. So to have other people that also just want to make people feel safe and comfortable, Leah's a great example of that. It is. It's very appreciated because it can feel heavy sometimes. So it's nice to get pulled back into reality a little bit.
Anyone else got a favorite situation?
That was a TED Talk. I'm sorry. Holy God.
We loved it.
Y'all should mute my mic.
You dropped Henry Cavill, so
I got a shit talk Henry Cavill.
like that's awesome. I didn't know that,
Goals.
so I'm learning.
I'm still in awe. You were on the BBC.
All right.
So.
Okay, we're gonna take a turn into the dark side of being a public figure, and like, what is the more difficult facing situations? Like you were talking about Friday, like what are the most difficult situations, and maybe how did you handle it, and do you wish you had done anything differently? Like I haven't really had too bad of a situation. Sadly, it's kind of funny. The stupidest sad situation is that I stopped wearing my merch as much to public because people kept stopping me, and sometimes I just want to grocery shop. But that's kind of awesome. Yeah, what about the rest of you? Difficult situations that you might have run into being a more public figure?
Yeah,
Again.
unfortunately for me, a couple of years ago, I did pick up a stalker at one of the conventions. So this was at a prior company, and at the time, we didn't really have any policies in place on how to keep our speakers safe at talks. So he ended up being able to basically like corner me at the convention and harass me until I gave him my work email and things like that. Like I couldn't get him to disengage with me until I gave him something. And then he was really insistent that we hug. It felt very invasive. The whole thing was very intense. And then he spent a couple of years e-stalking me basically through that information and like applying to jobs at the company to try to get on like interview circuits with me. And I had to let everyone know like, hey, if this person applies, we need to keep an eye on this. Caused some issues on our forums on Reddit and things like that. The community managers then had to follow up with and try to get sorted out. So that was pretty rough. Like, you know, I think it was somebody who was really passionate and didn't know how to express that passion in a safe way. But for me, that was the biggest one. And there were a lot of lessons learned about how to keep yourself safer at cons. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But yeah, for me, picking up a stalker was probably the harder moment for sure.
Yeah, public safety definitely comes into it. I remember when I was on the media side, we already said, like, the gaming industry has its skeletons in the closet. We had our big Me Too movement 3 years ago. When I was a journalist, I loved investigative journalism. Like, I was among the original group of journos that broke the Activision Blizzard story. And unfortunately, that meant I covered things that some gamers didn't like. I did have, I remember one time at a previous convention, I actually got beat up by a guy that hated an article I wrote about Fortnite. And it wasn't even a bad article. If he would have just read it, he would have realized it was satire, because I loved Fortnite. I was addicted to it at the time. I wrote all the guides. And yeah, he just followed me everywhere. He got my schedule, so he was at every booth I was at. And we had a late night panel, and he just was there, and it was a big deal. And also, there's just bad shenanigans sometimes in the industry. You know, I was in it during some of the worst parts of 21 years, some of the worst parts in it, and that means internal stuff too. And there's a lot of bad actors in games, and when you're public facing, the risk of outing them is even higher, because it's not you just trying to deal with that person. Now you're having to deal with an entire community taking sides on something they don't know anything about. And those can be really challenging. It was, 2020 went through a really big thing, and it was very public, and mental health was at an all-time low. I quit my job. I was scared. Mental health was to the point where I went to a police station. I was like, I think I'm going to kill myself. Please stop me. And but on top of that, I had to still tweet jokes. And I still had to act like everything was fine because I needed people to stop taking sides. And if I were to keep it going, that was just going to keep the narrative going. And it's rough. It's really rough when you're feeling like everything is getting taken from you, or your entire world is shifting, and you have to do it with a smile on your face. I think that's one thing I really do like about Bungie is we have a really good system in place. We have a really great security team. If you like Bungie at all, you already know we have one hell of a legal team. And yeah, I've felt safe. Like, you know, I've had people run up to me and yell at me at the gas station. I had a grown man run up to me and scream in my face to where I thought he was going to hit me. And if that was going to happen, I'm glad it happened to me. Former Marine, like, you don't scare me, and I will embarrass you in front of your mama, but like, that shouldn't be a thing at all. Nobody acts like that, or should act like that. Like, who raised you? But yeah, and even then, you still got to smile. Like, I was nodding, and I was like, do you have anything else? What? Okay, we'll put this on the feedback forums. Just trying to keep that professional hat, even though it was a Sunday afternoon. I was wearing basketball shorts and an old Nirvana shirt I've had for 15 years. Clearly not at work. But you kind of have to keep that professionalism all the time. And sometimes you just want to chill. You want to bing chillin', you know? It's interesting. But the support is necessary. And the crying, like you mentioned, relying on the people that care about you and understand, and you're not a burden for saying, hey, I'm struggling, I could use some support right now.
Yeah, you were just reminding me, I remember, and I honestly cannot remember what was going on, but I remember I went to film a viaduct. Oh, I do remember. So I filmed a viaduct.
I saw the light bulb go off.
Yeah. I filmed a viaduct, and literally I won't go into too many details, but I had been poisoned.
Wait, what?
I had been, it was not an intentional
How
poisoning.
do you not remember getting poisoned?
I do remember being poisoned, but I literally went to film a viaduct, and I had like literally been one day out of getting poisoned. Like, I was one day okay. I mean, honestly, I looked great. I had lost like 10 pounds. Don't recommend poisoning for weight loss, but it was great.
Not official health advice.
But like, it's not advice. But, and I also remember, like, I remember something else was going on in my personal life, and I had just gotten the news, and yet I had to go on this viaduct and put a smile on my face and tell, you know, players about these cool features that we were doing. And honestly, like, the other thing too, and to the point of feeling the weight of everything that you're presenting, when you don't necessarily control it, I remember one of those features ended up getting delayed. And I remember feeling bad, like, but I told players that we were going to have it in this release, and then we're not. And it's not like I control any of that. Like, things just happen. And being a part of that public-facing thing and just having your own life and your own things going on, yeah, it's kind of weird and crazy and hard, but absolutely worth it.
Worth it, 100%.
Yeah, I think that, like, especially on the player support side, like, we have to be the deliverer of bad news a lot of the time. I grew very thick-skinned when I first started this job, like, out of necessity, right? Because, like, you know, we're in the forums, and, like, we are often the bearer of bad news, and, like, players get upset at us quite often because, like, you know, they finally have, like, a face, although it is, like, anonymous through the Bungie help account, like, you know, they have a face to, like, well, Bungie's not fixing this, and, like, the help account is saying this, so, like, I'm going to be mad at the help account. Whereas, like, a lot of the time, like, you know, we have to look at that and, like, disassociate and, like, keep it, like, yeah, they're mad at, like, they're mad at Bungie Health, they're not, like, mad at me because, you know, I'm the one that, like, told them that. So, you know, I would definitely agree with, like, having a strong team because, like, everyone on the player support team has had, like, a bad day in the forums, for sure. Like, just, it gets to you, like, being in there all day, like, every day, it does get to you, like, no matter how much of a thick skin you have. So, like, definitely having a team that understands that and supports you through that is, like, super, super beneficial.
The thick skin point, I do like that. I think it's always funny to me because anytime I ever say this, people are confused because people assume that the hardest part about my job as a CM is the players being mean and yelling at you and calling you every name in the book. And to me, that's the easiest part because you don't know me. Therefore, your opinion of me does not matter. But also, I recognize that if somebody is being that hateful, there's typically a reason for it that's got nothing to do with you. Hurt people want to be heard. And if they go through extended periods of time not feeling heard, they will resort to other means to be heard. And I will say there was one player, sorry PR if I'm not supposed to hear this, but like there was one player that he was just constantly attacking our devs, like every day, and saying the most hateful shit. I remember one person, stuff, and saying like, their like mom just recently passed, and the player was like, good, your mom's probably embarrassed of you anyway, and like really just going ham. And I finally responded to him on Twitter. I was like, what's going on? I was like, are you okay? Genuine question. And I tried to soften it a little bit with a personal anecdote. I was like, I remember when I got out of the military, because I was medically retired for something that I had no control over, I was angry, and I was a bit of an asshole for like a solid year as I kind of reoriented myself with the real world, because military is very much its own thing. And I was like, I remember when I got out of the military, I was saying things like you're saying, and now looking back, I recognize it was coming from a very hurt place. I was like, if you're open and you want to open up your DMs, I'd love to talk to you. And we ended up having like a 3-hour phone conversation. And I found out that he actually recently just tried to take his life because his mom died. And then like a week later, his dad died. Then he lost his job. And Destiny was the only game he played. So for him, he didn't realize he was kind of spiraling. And we were his outlet for this rage he felt. And he bought me, he like sent me like $125 for pizza. He was like, give all this TM team my love. I'm so sorry for everything I've said. And like, it was a really positive thing. And now I see him all the time in the forums, like defending us against people that used to say the stuff or stuff that he used to say. And I think that's really cool. And that shouldn't be expected of you. Like, honestly, again, if a CM tells you don't read the comments, don't read the freaking comments. But like, if you do have the thick skin for it and you can stomach hearing some of the things, there's some really cool opportunities to connect on a much deeper level. And while, sure, one person doesn't have a significant impact, I guarantee you he's going to change the way he talks to his friends. And then they're going to change the way they talk to their friends. And if we can do that, it eventually will accumulate to being a much healthier community. It doesn't need to have results the next week for it to be beneficial. And also to just be freaking kind. Be compassionate. Everybody needs grace at some point. That doesn't stop being true just because you don't like what they're saying.
I love that you brought that up because it is interesting that being a public-facing figure, like, I think that we can, in some ways, teach others in our community how to better treat us and with more understanding.
Yeah.
Right? Like
And each other.
Yeah, I've done these speaking things to. We have Bungie Foundation is an amazing organization that Bungie has, and people who donate to it, sometimes they come in and they do tours and they get to talk with the developers. And so I've done presentations for those tours, and one of the most amazing interactions I've had has been like talking with those people, and they always want to know, why can't we have more in the game? Right? And so going into more detail about like our development pipelines and why we can't have more in the game, even if we wanted to, has been amazing, seeing that understanding on their faces. And I just know that they've taken that and been like, oh, I know why Destiny can't have more. And and they suddenly support us. And that is one of the most amazing things of like just having those interactions with community and in such a positive way. That's amazing that you reached out. That's so awesome.
I'm just glad he was willing to talk. Cool dude. Very cool dude. I hope he works in games one day. I'm trying to convince him to go for an entry-level producer role because I think he'd be really great at it. I don't know. People are cool, man.
So what about the rest of you? Do you have things that you've experienced or thought of the ways that our community members can help make the lives of public-facing people, both men, women, everyone, trans, better?
Yeah, I think one piece is remembering that no individual represents the entire decision-making process at whatever company they happen to be at, right? Like the person that you happen to be seeing tweeting out or seeing on a stage like this, like there's a really high chance that no decision that you may be upset about was made by that individual, or even if they had a say in it, it's a really big collaborative group process to make games, so there's a lot of us involved. So I think
Please stop yelling at our narrative department for PvP concerns.
Yeah, so I think just, remembering that no individual is responsible for all of these big decisions that get made, and that person's just out there trying to represent as best as they can.
Yeah, and I think that there are usually good reasons for the decisions that get made. Not always, but usually there is, and they're not always like obvious or things that it makes sense to go into a lot of detail. But grace, right? Assuming the best, whether that's your teammates or a dev or a community member, goes a long way. And accepting that like everything is a trade-off. When you're making a video game, everything is a trade-off. And so you may not have gotten X, but you did get Y. So Y is really cool. Appreciate Y. Maybe X will come later.
Yeah.
But there's only so many hours in the day to do things. And
It's just a job. I want to say that I'm going to say that probably 50 more times because there's so many people in this industry that lose themselves in it. Like, I'm public facing. Like when I was on the journo side, it was their entire personality. It's like, bro, go pick up knitting or something. Like, you need a hobby. And it's just like, you just have to remind yourself, it's a job. Grace applies to yourself too. You have to give yourself the same grace you show others because it's not, like, not to sound callous, but it's just not that serious. They're video games. They're fun. They're meant to be fun. Like, making them is fun, playing them is fun. It's just a job.
Yeah, leaning on something that Wendy said that you reminded me of is that I like to always remind myself that video games is an art form. And it reminds me a lot of art and food and books. And it's like one man's trash is another man's treasure. Sometimes we do things that we think are really awesome, and some people don't think they're awesome, but some people do think they're awesome. Like, we're all just trying to do our best and trying to make the best product we can, and sometimes things we think are awesome, some people in the community don't, and that's just life, and just understand, like, we're just doing our best.
Yeah, and like, the teams that work on it, like, not everyone on a team may choose to be public facing, and like, a lot of the time, like, decisions at Bungie are like a really big team decision, like, collaboration and like teamwork is something super big, but like, because players may only see the public facing person who, like, represents that, going after that one individual is like not representative of like, no, like the team made a big decision about this, or like, internally, like a lot of teams worked on this thing, so like, just being mindful that like, not to shoot the messenger in that sense.
That's not even counting the stuff that people work on. You know how many awesome features, and this is not any studio specific, this is a blanket studio thing. How many awesome features that players or like devs are excited about, and then just a decision from on high, not God, leadership, comes as like, look, we're re-strategizing. This has to go. And you're so proud of that. You might have spent years working on that feature, and then now you can't, not only can you never share it, which is the moment you're looking for, but you have to immediately launch into something else. You don't even really get that grieving period. So like, I promise you, if you're one of those players that yells on Twitter, one, stop it. Two, realize that as painful it is for you, it's probably just as painful for that dev. Especially what I've noticed with games is, if you see everybody talking about a feature and that feature still doesn't exist, stop and think. They obviously see it. They know. If that feature's not in the game, there's a really good reason why. And 9 times out of 10, we can't tell you that reason for X, Y, and Z reasons. So like, it's just, I think that's why this kind of stuff is cool, because you get to see, like, even as a journalist, we knew so much about how games were made. You had to like know your shit. And even still, when I joined DevSide, I was like, oh my God, like, I didn't know anything. And it's just like, that's cool. Like, don't you always want to be learning something new? How boring would it be if you knew everything? I don't know, man. Games are just really cool.
The other thing I think is amazing is like working at game companies, like the people who work at game companies generally love games. And, I'm not going to sell out any particular studio, but the amount of infighting about what would be a good feature that goes on inside the game companies is epic. I mean, we have features inside Destiny that we have not made, that like there's like literally arguments nonstop about what should be made and what will never probably be made. It's almost as passionate about as our arguments about what makes up a sandwich. Like, is a taco a sandwich?
No, we're not doing that. No, we
No,
did that.
that's a
We're not
big
doing that again.
thing.
No, we're not
At
doing that.
Bungie.
Or like the mint chocolate chip arguments.
Mint chocolate chip, yeah, is
No,
divided free.
moving on.
Yeah, I mean, we could go down rabbit holes, but like, there's passion. There's so as much passion as there is in the community. There's inside the game studios for the features. And yeah, what kept going through my mind when you were talking was, don't throw food at the mascot because the team lost. Like the public-facing figure versus like the people who made it. And I mean, honestly, don't throw food at the team either. But they're just doing their best. Okay, we only have a few minutes left because we also want to have some time for Q&A. But ladies, what are some tips you have in terms of like if you want to become a more public-facing figure, tips to keep yourself safe or ways to venture into it in a healthy manner that you wish maybe you had known going into it?
I'm going to take this one first.
Yeah, go.
I'm sorry. First things first. Just because you want something does not mean that something is right for you. I do a lot of mentorships, and I'm very proud of the people I've mentored. I have many people that I've mentored that are now at IGN and now at their dream studios. I'm very proud to be able to have been a support system for them. But the amount of people that I help that think and are very sure without a shred of doubt, I want to be public facing, because they only see the good parts of it. And then 2 weeks of it, they're like, I'm out, I'm done. Like I've had people straight up just leave the industry. Really look, if you're interested in the public facing aspect, ask yourself why. Because if that's the only thing you're interested in, you're gonna have a bad time. You should not, like there is no gain to being public facing for the sake of being public facing. Because at that point, you're kind of thinking with your ego. And when you're, especially like community management, you are a representation of the company you work for. And you also have a chance to impact people around you. So if you're operating out of this place of ego, what are you telling them is the right thing to do? So I would say first off is to make sure what you're going into that with the expectations and why you want to do it. Once you've gotten that existential crisis out of the way, look into how doing it safely. Be authentic. Know what you want to do. Like I didn't brand anything. When people tell me your brand, I'm like, I just think of the eye commercial, and I'm confused because my brand is basically talking about Mass Effect and shit posting like I'm a 12-year-old on Reddit. But like, that's me. That's what I love. And so I know I don't have to worry, is my mask slipping? Because there's no mask. I'm just a dork. And I think that if you go into it, if you play the part of somebody else, you may succeed for a year or two, but it always comes back. Always. Always lead with your kindest foot forward, because that always comes back. Always. Just ask IGN. There's all these things that they think they want the fame, they want the whatever, which is such a stupid thing to say, but like, why do you want to be there? Do you want to be a supportive? Do you just want a platform? Do you want to spread positivity? And then also understand that being public facing doesn't make you more important. They're like, we don't do, like, I know CMs do a lot, but we wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for the multitudes of teams that do amazing things. So like, if you just are passionate about the industry, be passionate about the industry. You don't need to be public facing to be passionate about that. Because if you're not doing it because it's genuinely what you want to do, or sometimes if you're like a lot of us, we kind of fell into it, then you have to reevaluate. Okay, is this what I want? Like, I wish I would have, when CBS did that thing, I wish I would have just left, because I ended up quitting like 6 months later anyway. Because like, that's not what I wanted. And I opened myself up to a lot of things that I wasn't prepared for. Having my weight talked about all the time. Getting told in a business meeting, you can't go to E3 unless you get a nose job because your nose looks weird. And just like weird things that I didn't really want to deal with, because that's not what I went into the industry for. And then also, I say network network not just because it's the thing to do, because that's, you get opportunities if you network. That's just the nature of every industry. But network so you also have a strong support system. Because if you don't have a support system, it gets lonely really quickly because there are a lot of people in this industry that they are one way online and very different. And that can throw you for a loop, and you can start to even gaslight yourself. So get your support system. That also helps you with safety. Don't ever walk anywhere by yourself. I don't care if you're a dude or a woman or whatever. Don't walk anywhere by yourself, especially in this day and age. People are people. But yeah, at the end of the day, you just please know what you want. That's like the biggest thing. Just know what you want.
I don't think I ever thought about that perspective of it. So, thank you. What about the rest of you? Do you have tips, tricks?
Yeah, I think if it's something that you're like, maybe I am interested, maybe I want to check this out, I would recommend starting with your local communities, because you will find out if you like public speaking when you have a group of 12 boys asking you questions about video games because you volunteered to talk to a Boy Scout group. So there's lots of organizations and communities who are always looking for folks from the industry to come give a talk or like come give advice to students. You can start with middle school and then talk to some high school students. Your first thing doesn't have to be something big and on a stage. You can start by working with local communities and be like, wow, was that fun and interesting, or do I never want to speak to anyone ever again? And it's a good way to give back to the community too and help some folks who are, maybe in a different stage of their career trying to get in and stuff. So yeah, I think I would say start with local community and then grow into it from there.
Yeah. And then like more focusing on like the online aspect, like mute and block is like your best friend. Like don't use it widely. Like it is like so important. I found to like really curate like your online communities to protect your mental health, honestly. Like it is so important. And then like again, never read the comments. Like we've learned so many, like never read the comments.
I feel like it's important to really understand which of your social medias you want to have public versus private, and to kind of try to drive those lines pretty hard.
Yeah, because like my Instagram's just photos of my cat. There's no cool game dev secrets on there. It's just
As
like
it
200
should be,
photos
right?
of cats.
Turn notifications off.
I think it sounds obvious, but I learned it the hard way. Think about your audience and consider your messaging and who you're talking to for what you're going to say, because otherwise you can confuse a lot of people, right? You might have the best of intentions, but if you're not answering the questions in a way your audience cares about, you're not helping them or helping you. So take the time, think about who you're talking to, why you're talking to them, and use that lens for communicating.
Cool. I want to leave some time. We only have 8 minutes. But does anyone have any questions? There is a microphone because we are being filmed. So, and if you want to shout it out, I can always repeat it if you don't feel like going up to the microphone.
I love your pants, by the way.
Thank you.
Those are amazing.
Awesome.
I was really like what you were saying about think about what you want. And I feel like I'm coming at this more of like, I don't necessarily want to be public facing, but coming from more of like basically a solo dev type of thing, and like just being like terrified of having to talk to people a lot online and not knowing how to engage with and like build community. I don't know if that's something that you could maybe talk about.
Yeah, that kind of ties into, that's a really good question, because that ties into, making sure you stay true to yourself. If you're not having to worry about a mask, not the COVID mask, mask, then it makes things a lot simpler. Because, especially with games, because games are cool. So, like, just look at it that way. When you're, especially, like, I don't know what context you mean by solo dev, indie studio, or, doing your own game. I love that. Work with a lot of indies with accessibility, too, and I think seeing them, like a really good example, if anybody plays Among Us, Victoria Tran is the head of their community, and people love her because she's just weird. She's weird as hell, but like it's awesome because you connect with her. You want to hear what else she's gonna say because she's just nuts in the best way possible. You kind of have to be in this industry, but like we're all just a bunch of neurodivergent babies just running around trying to make cool things. Just be authentic to yourself and know that there's no pressure. Any pressure you have or you perceive, you're inventing it. Like, I feel like the world would be a much better place if we understood that there is no such thing as anything. We all make it up. Not to go like conspiracy theories, we're all a simulation. But like a lot of times, and again, it kind of ties back to a lot of us are neurodivergent, we're creating more problems than there actually are in our minds. And so simplify. You went into this role because it brought you joy. So talking with your community, it would bring you joy. And I think that's really important too with early and career folks, because I've had this issue on the journalist side too, is I've got 21 years of experience. I've had 21 years to cultivate a skill set that I knew was tailored to what I wanted to do. But sometimes with early and career folks, they get intimidated by being around a lot of industry vets, so they feel like they need to be on your level. And one, that's silly, obviously for common sense sake, but like you are going to shoot yourself in your own foot because, like what you said, you're turning down those opportunities to learn. I couldn't go just jump into hosting the showcase last year. I got that because I had done a little lot. I've messed up, I've done well, I've learned, I've pivoted, and just stop putting that extra pressure. When you're talking, your community will build itself. It will. You don't, just share what you're excited about. Talk like you're talking to nobody and everybody. Pretend you're a YouTuber. YouTubers aren't talking to nobody. They're looking at a camera. It's awkward as hell. But the people that are watching it love it. Just talk about things that you enjoy. Talk about things that bring you joy. And then you will find organically the people in your community or the people in the gaming community that will also find joy in that. And then they will spread it to people that they know will find joy in it. It'll happen. It doesn't need to happen within a year. It took me 21 years to get to where I'm at. Any timetable that you have is a timetable you put on yourself. Why? Just enjoy it. We're all gonna die anyway.
I love that. I think it's so important to embrace the passion because when you are excited, it can make other people who are listening to you excited and happy. One thing I would also say is draw your boundaries. Don't be afraid to not answer questions. It's okay to be like, I don't feel comfortable talking about that, or, we're not ready to discuss. I think really early on, that was the hardest thing because I wanted to answer everybody's question and I wanted to tell them all the truth or tell them what I really felt or really thought about something. And I think it's really important just to be like, oh, I'm not going to answer that. And then do you have another question?
Fail often. I'm serious. That's the only way you're going to learn. Then you're perfect. Apply today. Seriously, when we watch, I don't know if anybody in here watched the Lightfall Showcase, but if you did, what you probably didn't know is that 5 seconds before we went live, which we changed the show like the day before, so I didn't have time to memorize anything. 5 seconds before we went live, my earpiece died. So I had to freeball the entire showcase. And you could never tell. Because who cares? You don't know what I'm going to talk about, so anything I say you're going to assume is part of the showcase. And I had the experience to do that. So don't be afraid to fail, because there's going to be stuff that's outside of your control. Just have fun with it.
Okay, we have 3 minutes left. Does anyone have another
She's like, please
question?
stop talking.
I love you. I just want to give other people an opportunity to answer questions or ask questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Did you say, how did I find myself being a producer? Get a college degree that's meaningless, that you can't get a job in. My college degree is in creative writing with a minor in film. So I love entertainment. And then I love movies. And I had a friend, networking, I had a friend who was working at LucasArts in particular. And he was like, hey, you're super organized. They have a production assistant job open. Would you want to go for it? And again, couldn't find a job, was working in a temp job at a fire department. And as part of that job, there's this part of fire departments, trust me, this goes somewhere. There's this part of fire departments where basically there's these big strips of land that you carve out. If you have this big plot of land, you have like these 100-foot breaks where it can't be grass so that fires can't hop, right? It's called weed abatement. So I had weed abatement on my resume that went to a video game studio. And all these other producers were like, what is weed abatement? And so they even told me afterwards, they partially brought me in to interview to find out what weed abatement was. And it was recommended by a friend. And then I got the job because I love being organized. I like to say that, because people ask that too, like, what made you want to be a producer? I'm like, in my family, we have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, and if we don't, we're failures in my family a little bit. So, but it just kind of, it's what I loved, and I loved entertainment, and I loved organizing, and so I kind of just got started there. But Wendy is also a producer.
Yeah, the cool thing about production is you can get there from anywhere. Like, I know artists, engineers, like, they're the ones that like to talk to people, that like to organize, that like to mess with the schedule, and a lot of us fall into it. I was doing project management before I came into it, but it's really have examples of how you've organized things. It could be a convention, it could be your guild that you're the guild leader of, right? Being able to demonstrate that you can organize and communicate is 90% of the battle. So it's, yeah, and having so many producers come from different walks of life is fantastic because you have different points of view and people bring different questions and
Different solutions.
different solutions, yeah.
Yeah, we have producers who come from art, producers who come from QA, quality assurance or testing, producers who come from engineering. Yeah, we have producers coming from everywhere. So, but yeah, I love everything that Wendy said. And I think like starting out, and you can do project management in a lot of software companies. And sometimes that's easier than getting into a game dev studio. So I definitely recommend that. I would say that the most important part is just, and this is going to sound weird, have a passion for learning, have a passion for organization, and talking to people.
Soft skills, very important.
If you've ever run a D&D game, put that on your resume.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I've literally hired somebody because the way they made D&D sound, I was like, holy crap. I don't even know what half you said, but I'm buying it. Okay, let's go.
If you can organize a 40-man raid, you can probably be a producer.
Alrighty, unfortunately that is all the time that we have. Thank you ladies so much for sharing all the wonderful information. We have some goodies somewhere around the stage, so please feel free to come and help yourself, and thank you so much for coming to our talk.
Thanks, everybody.